Well, hundreds of U.S. and NATO soldiers reportedly arrive on the border of Syria. According to a former FBI official, hundreds of troops have mysteriously landed on the border and are training militants to overthrow the regime of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. But she says the U.S. media has been suspiciously silent about all of this. The whistleblower that is helping to bring this to light, Sibel Edmonds, joined me here in studio a little earlier to expose some of the details.
Well, my sources in Turkey and those also military sources here in the United States, and these are U.S. military sources and Turkish military sources familiar with the training of Syrian rebels in Turkey, in southern Turkey, in U.S. base, is Incirlik base in the southern part of Turkey, in Hatay area, since last May, and this is May 2011. And this story was confirmed by several high-level people from both sides, Turkish military and U.S. military. And we broke the story in November, on November 22nd, and no one in the U.S. media has reported on this, even though a week later this story was confirmed and it was publicized by major newspapers in Turkey, and nothing. We haven't.
Why aren't we hearing this from the mainstream media?
Well, my sources told me that before they provided me with this information, a month before that, and this would make it around end of September, early October, they had gone to the New York Times and Washington Post and the New Yorker and some major popular alternative channels. And the editors there, they said they were not going to cover this angle and they would not provide them with any answer. And they were baffled. So basically, our website became the last resort for these people. And amazingly, the Turkish media, even though they've been under intense pressure by the government there, they've been reporting.
Well, it certainly is strange that we haven't heard any of these details. I want to talk to you a little bit more about what you do know. Where did these troops come from? Any indication of that?
Are we talking about the ones
on the
in
Syrian
Turkey?
Border?
On the Syrian border with Turkey, these are the rebels who have been crossing the borders and military defectors that have been coming there since April 2011. But as far as the trainers are concerned, these are the Turkish arm of the NATO and U.S. military and intelligence personnel who've been working with Colonel Riyad al-Assad. And he's been in Turkey since May 2011, and he's been the one who has been making all the training and also communication with the rebels inside the Syria possible for U.S. NATO forces.
And when do you believe that the U.S. NATO forces arrived?
Well, they have always been in Turkey because they have a base. U.S. has a base, Incirlik base in Turkey. So they've been there, and now inside the base they have had this division to train the rebels there. They also help the rebels smuggle arms into Syria, but also they have a communication division there in order to actually increase the number of defectors from the current Syrian army.
And talk a little bit more about what their mission is and what the U.S. NATO role is in training these militants.
Well, I don't have the details on that, but a lot of these activities had to do with the information wars, and that was to spread propaganda in Syria, to also help them, as these are the rebels who carried the messages and the publicity created by the Turkish U.S. NATO forces inside Turkey, and also spreading information. And they also have access directly to all the military communication inside Syria because they're able to receive that information directly from Syria in the base there.
So you're saying that U.S. NATO troops are helping to spread this propaganda in order to topple this regime?
Or the twisted information that they want to cross and get it to the people in Syria, and also the leftover people, the people in the military with Assad's regime.
And it certainly is strange that we aren't hearing about this. How can you verify, or to what extent do you trust your sources, and how do we know that these are in fact U.S. soldiers?
Sure. My sources, first of all, I have officers within U.S. military, but I also have Turkish military sources who actually have been unhappy about these developments. But this story, after we broke this story, was confirmed by all the major networks and newspapers in Turkey, starting at the end of November. So they had their own sources, and these were the people who were able to go, and actually some of them had photographed the former military members from Assad's regime in southern Turkey, Hatay area, being trained with U.S. military personnel and the activities that have been taking place there. So if you were to go and look at the archives, Turkish newspapers have been reporting on this. No reports from the U.S. media, even though, I mean, the reporters kept telling us that, well, they're under pressure, they wouldn't want to jeopardize our troops, but, I mean, just those excuses don't make sense. And this is exactly what they did with us with Iraq. And similar incidents took place during Libya. And now, since May, they have been helping the U.S. government to cover up these setup, these preparations, these activities, starting May 2011, because most people here in the U.S., they're under this impression that things are reactionary. Assad's regime is bringing about some atrocities, and some rebels there, they're going and fighting. They have no idea that all these setups and preps started in May 2011. So it is by design, and it's not some kind of a simultaneously uprising situation where people are rebelling and then suddenly they are mysteriously armed, and mysteriously arms are being smuggled into Syria from Turkey. Well, who's providing these arms? Nobody's asking in the U.S. media. Well, these are U.S. arms shipped to Turkey, and from Turkey it's being smuggled into Syria.
So you're saying that there is a lot more to the picture than what the headlines expose after the fact?
Absolutely. And I would make the distinction between Western media and the media there, let's say in Turkey or in Middle East, because people there tend to get more of the real news information than people here in Western nations. And of course, that is by design too, because it is not the consent of the Middle Eastern people that the U.S. government is after. They want to line up support from Europe and people in the United States for the very soon to come war with Syria.
And lastly, Sibel, I want to ask you why you decided to expose this information and why you think it's important for the public to know about this.
Well, initially when I first got this information, my first question was, why are you coming to me? Why don't you go to the media? And I was told that, in fact, these people had taken these reports to all the major newspapers in the United States, New York Times, Washington Post, Pulitzer winner journalists with the New Yorker, but they have been getting silence treatment. And in some cases, they were told that they were not going to cover it, and this being the U.S. media. So when they came to us, we decided to check our, with our other sources, and after we checked, we decided to go and print.
And do you think that these are all signs that maybe the media is working with the U.S. government or complying with orders from the U.S. government?
Well, that has been established for many, many years now. I mean, if you were to ask this, American people will tell you, at least those who are aware, we went through this with Iraq, we went through this with Libya, and we went through this with so many wars that we have had since 9/11, and this fits the pattern we have had before, and nothing is different. And if you go and speak with the analysts out there, they are looking at this information. Asia Times reported on this. Your news organization reported on this. These are the facts, these are the sources, and it makes sense. We have Jordan, we have Syria, we have Iraq. Well, we are basically surrounding Syria, and today we heard that Canada now is evacuating their citizens from Syria, basically telling us it's about to start, we are about to begin. Well, you don't start anything without prep. At least that's not the case with the United States military. You start doing the prep work. Well, this prep work started in May 2011 in case of Syria.